Hey, Reid.
How you doing, Dean?
Reid, let's pretend that you've just started a 1 year hypothetical fractional CMO engagement. Okay, new client. Today's day one.
Sure.
Let's talk about the first 90 days. Okay. Um, First, let folks know a little bit about you, and then talk about what a fractional CMO is and does in the first 90 days.
Yeah, great question. So, as far as who I am Reid Vander. I'm a fractional CMO. I work mostly in the outdoor recreation industry, a little bit in agriculture, a little bit in construction, maybe, but mostly in
Mm-hmm.
that outdoor recreation space. Some of these clients sell aftermarket gun parts, components, accessories. Some sell gear, clothing. Some may even sell sheds to store your outdoor toys, four wheelers, side by sides, snowmobiles, that type of thing. But wherever they are in the outdoor space, I help them grow on purpose and experience real intentional growth. So they got where they are today through probably a combination of hard work and hustle and hope.
Right.
And now it's time for them to, I won't say professionalize, but maybe operationalize the function of marketing within their organization.
Okay.
And then to answer your question, day one, that's a fantastic question. First 90 days for me, I like to approach work from the standpoint of there's really three elements to it. So first it's groundwork, then it's the grunt work, and then it's the growth work. So first 90 days is going to largely be focused on that groundwork level. And what I mean by that is this is going to be really getting a deep understanding of what's at play there. What's the structure, implementing some structure, consistency, identifying gaps, what processes, tools,
Right.
systems, software are we using, create some potentially if we don't have them. But really that first 90 days, that groundwork phase is all going to be about stabilizing and providing some structure. So from there, it moves on to, when you get into that grunt work level, that's more of once we have a good understanding of what's at play, we can start to manipulate and modify and adjust, and it gets a little uncomfortable for people at times. Legacy staff at times will have some issues with this. Maybe we've got new tools, new software, new systems to learn, or maybe we've adjusted their scope of work, their job description slightly. That's that grunt work. And from there, we optimize, continue to optimize, and hopefully experience some growth and get to do that work after that. 90 days, though, that first 90 days, it's all about the groundwork structure.
Okay. So let's switch perspectives then, away from the CMO. All right. I'm the CEO. I probably needed to get like approval for this kind of spend to bring in a fractional CMO for a year, right? How do I or how does my company make sure that we don't waste the money that we've just allocated for that fractional CMO? Or
Great
how do we
question.
get the most value out of that fractional CMO if you want to answer it the other way?
Yeah, so I would say to be vague at the beginning, and then I'll get more specific, but lean in and engage is probably the easy
Mm-hmm.
one at the outset. Lean in and engage. The big thing for me, whether it's a CEO or the executive team or a different member, whoever that sponsor is, I'm looking for them to lubricate the whole process. So wherever that friction exists, that's where breakdowns are going to occur. If
Right.
that's in implementing new tools and tech, and the IT team is going to buck that, we need some lubrication. If it's a staffing issue, on the human resource side, the ability to, make some people uncomfortable maybe a little bit at times. Wherever that friction exists, I'm looking for that sponsor, that executive to lubricate the situation a little bit.
Right.
I would say for a CEO, I often give my clients permission and encourage them to ask me three questions at any time, whether I'm in the hallway, the water cooler, if we're on a call. I want them to feel compelled to ask me three questions, and I want to have an answer for this at all times. So first one is, what am I doing for you? What are we working on? What are we up to? What are we
Right.
doing? Just to make sure that they're informed, that they're aware of what's going on. The second question is more of an alignment question, but it's, why have we decided to focus on this? So I say that's an alignment question because oftentimes the pace at which we're working, we might forget 2 months later. We had a strategy session all day offsite, 2 months ago, and we decided this is going to be our focus for the next quarter, for the second half of the year. And we need to ensure partially that for my sake and the team's sake, but also for the executive's sake, whoever that sponsor is, that priorities haven't changed during that time. Let's make sure that that's still the most important thing to be working on, and a justifiable use of our efforts and our resources and our energy and our people. So what am I doing for you? Why have we decided to focus on this? And then what's the impact to the organization if we get this right? And that's a little bit more of a vision casting type of an answer or question to say, if we do this and we execute really well, here's the outcome. Here's what we're expecting, at least a hypothesis anyway, of this is what we're aiming for. And that gets to be really exciting. So I encourage my executives to be able, ask those questions of me and the team, not just me, but if there's in-house staff that we're working with or agencies, like, test us on this. Let's make sure we're all aligned. Right. And I would say the third thing maybe is help set that vision, but then trust to execute and translate even. So trust the team, trust me, trust the agency, whoever we're working with, trust them to execute on that. And even translate is probably more a specific role for that CMO. What I mean by that is marketers, creative types often will have a little bit of a language of their own. Many roles do, but we speak a certain way. Creative types, we have a certain dialogue, as do executives. So it's important for a CMO or a fractional CMO to be that white space in the middle, help translate, organizational strategy and direction from that executive group down to the team. Maybe it's the new graphic designer that started. We got to be able to communicate those things in a language that makes sense, and then also communicate back the other direction. Here's what we're up to, again, to those 3 questions. Here's what we're up to and why we're doing it and what the impact is, to make sure that they're informed, they're aligned, and we're making progress.
Yeah. Marketing has a really rich jargon and internal dictionary. In fact, it's one of the prime rules of this podcast is, other than CMO, there are no marketing terms or abbreviations or jargon allowed in the podcast.
Perfect.
Yeah. Keep it simple. Okay. So let's talk about the internal team then a little tiny bit more.
Sure.
All right. So in a lot of cases, I imagine with, given that you're starting with younger or smaller companies, chances are there may have been management of a marketing team, but there's never been a leadership layer on that marketing team, right?
Definitely.
So tell me this. Let's say at the end of the 90 days or the end of the year, right, when that engagement finally ends, how is that marketing team different or better than it was on day one when you showed up?
Yeah, this is an excellent question too. So I actually think this is a big misconception that a lot of people have. I face this myself. It's a point of frustration for me when chatting with a prospect or someone who might be able to refer prospects to me. If I have a connection and I'm seeking out, I say, hey, I'd really like to know so-and-so at this organization. One of the things that you'll hear back is, well, they've got an in-house team or they're working with an agency. My response to that is excellent. This is perfect. This is the best, because the last thing I want to do, I tell clients and prospects this quite frequently, the last thing I want to do is run the day-to-day of your organization.
Or use up any of your engagement hiring a team from scratch.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And there are times where maybe that's a specific part of the scope is hey, we want to move from outsourcing all of this to insourcing. If that's a specific scope element to the engagement, excellent. We can focus on that. But I'd rather not be wasteful and spend time writing your blog posts or managing your social media or editing your website. There are more freelancers and people you can find for these types of roles than there are coffee shops anymore. And that's saying something.
Yeah.
So for me, when there's an in-house staff or when there's agencies involved in an organization, I get probably more excited, honestly, because we now have human resources and even systems and tools to go execute these things. I think one of the major differences between a fractional officer, a fractional CMO, or those agency services, those other third-party vendors, freelancers, is that when I work with a client, we are, from the outset, we are positioning it as an in-house role. I am sitting on the same side of the proverbial table as you are, right? It's I'm wearing your branded company logo on my apparel. I'm operating from a Reid at yoururl.com email address. It's in there. It's as much a component of the large organization as any other employee would be. So what that allows me to do is act with a bias on your behalf, an aggressive bias, hopefully on your behalf. Not worried about my own P&L as an agency. I'm not worrying about paying my creative team and making sure they have enough billable hours. I'm focused on getting you and your team and the function of marketing within your organization to operate and perform at the highest level. And we need resources like an in-house team. We need agencies to do that. I'll offer an example, what I think is a really good example for this. Last year, about this time, we were right about halfway through the year, early June. I started with a client, and they had an army of agencies, of third-party vendors. They had staff in-house. And when I started there, that organization was about $7 million off pace for the year. So about halfway through, and that's for this client, they're about a $50 million a year client in terms of what their annual revenue target would be. So that, I mean, you're talking 10 to 15%. They're behind pace. And if something doesn't change, they're going to have a pretty ugly year. So we aligned this army, this stable of all these different people rowing in different directions with different priorities, provided a singular direction, a couple specific goals to focus on and target on, got everybody rowing in the same direction. And that client was able to close books at the end of last year, $5 million ahead of budget. So they went on that's a $12 million swing over basically 6-7 months.
Right.
Which is really impressive too for this client specifically. They're in the firearms space. They're in the outdoor shooting, hunting space. So there's a fair bit of seasonality to this business or this industry. So the last half of the year, Q3 and especially Q4, is a really big. We have high expectations for that part of the year anyway. So on top of that, to couple that with a $12 million swing, that was quite the ride for the last half of that year. But right. I think that's a really good example of a 90-day win. What does that first 90 days look like? We got to lay the groundwork. We got to correct for some misspends in budget. We got to align resources. We got to change staff a little bit. We have to get all of these different vendors and agencies, your media buyers and your social group and your digital group and your e-commerce folks and your SEO team. And we have to get all those people aligned, rowing in the same direction. That's a little bit of a cliche analogy, but
right.
It's a big deal. Yeah, I tell clients all the time, the last thing I want to do is post on your social media or write your blogs. I think there's excellent resources for that. You don't want your CMO doing that stuff.
Well, let's talk about that person then, right? Let's talk about the most junior person in marketing at that company. All right. They're like 22, 23, 24. I mean, it's probably the first full-time marketing job that they have. All right. And you're going to be there for a year, or someone like you is going to be at the head of the marketing organization for a year, right? If it was you from way back in the beginning of your career, or you're talking to a nephew or a friend's kid, and they say, "Hey, I just joined this company a few months ago or a year ago. I take care of their social media, right? Or I take care of their email or whatever, outbound email." So what should I be looking for? What should I be trying to learn from this person? What should I be asking them? Right. How can I sort of, what do I do to get the most out of this opportunity I'm going to have, where there's finally going to be someone at the very top of the organization with a broader view and lots of experience? What would you say?
I would say to that, ultra junior level employee, first roll out of school. I used to joke that I didn't know how to spell SEO. I've changed that since to I don't know how to spell CMO, but it's not far from the truth. For this individual that's really fresh and really raw, I would say there's a couple excellent things that person will hopefully learn from a good CMO. First of which is how to experiment.
Right.
And the second is how to simplify. So the first thing would be how to experiment. And that's a little bit more of a philosophical, almost like a mindset thing than anything else. Mm-hmm. One of my core fundamental beliefs when it comes to marketing is that it's all an experiment. If you're approached by somebody who says, I have the answer. I know the exact blueprint we need to follow, and we're going to get this figured out for you. That makes me a little bit cautious, a little bit leery. I don't want anybody coming in with a sure thing. So
Right.
it's all an experiment, in my opinion. Humans are weird, right? People are weird. We operate differently in a group than we do individually. We're motivated by different things. And if you've been in this industry at all for a while, you know that what worked yesterday might not work today for some reason, or what didn't work yesterday might make perfect sense today for who knows what reason, right? Things change rapidly. Algorithms change constantly. It's all an experiment. So that's one of my, I would say, fundamental core beliefs. No one knows for sure. You just need to learn faster and more often than the other guy, and take action on whatever you're learning, whatever those lessons learned are. Another big thing for junior employees that I would say I had to learn the hard way is how to simplify. So simplify your strategy or the delivery of that strategy if it's complex. Simplify your messaging in a campaign. Boil it all down to the most immediate nuts and bolts. If it's creative you're working on, don't add complexity where it's not required. So I think those are two really specific things. And I'll throw even a third thing in there. A bonus is that if the organization is a healthy one,
Right.
the fact that the best idea wins should be there, right? So if you're a junior employee and you're trying to get your head figured out, your life figured out, if you're at an organization where, because so-and-so said so, this whole like, we're not children, we're not listening to our parents, I'm not 4 years old because so-and-so said so, and they're the most senior person, and that's the way we do it, maybe an indication that you've got a little bit of an unhealthy culture.
Yeah.
But if you have great ideas, hopefully the organization in which you're working is a little bit of a meritocracy where the best ideas win regardless of who said them, where they come from. And that's what we're going to work on. Beyond those 2 or 3 things, I would say it's that junior individual is probably going to learn things that are pretty scope specific. And by that, I mean, if I'm hired to solve a lead generation issue, they're going to learn a lot about inbound.
Right.
If we need some operational structure inside of our marketing department, they're going to learn about systems, tools, process, procedure. Maybe it's e-commerce, they're going to learn about digital. Or if it's more of that general all-encompassing, hey, I need someone to carry this torch, the CMO or CEO, somebody hands over the reins. I've got too many hats and I need someone to manage this. Hopefully, if they're really good, that individual will get a mini master's degree in all things related to marketing.
Yeah.
Resource allocation, budget, project management, strategy development, people, how to work with people. I mean, those are all things that hopefully they'll get a really good sense of working with a great CMO.
Okay, so I mean, we talk about a 1-year engagement, but sometimes it goes longer, right? Sometimes there's a re-up or a renewal.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think went right for a fractional CMO to get renewed for another year?
I think a few things have to happen. A number of things have to happen. The biggest of which is probably there needs to be alignment with that executive team or that sponsor, whoever is internally championing the effort, right? There needs to be good alignment with them. I also think the people that, this might be obvious, but the CMOs, the fractionals that want to get renewed, those are the only ones that can. And maybe a little bit of an explanation of that. If the executive team is, let's say you're in a very ops heavy organization, if that CMO comes in and is talking about creative and all that stuff, it's not gonna be met well or received well, right? So you have to talk in hard stats, facts. If maybe they are more of that innovative type, hey, we want someone to come in with fresh ideas and push the envelope. Okay, then you get to start talking about creative. If they're bottom line focused individuals, I've worked with CFOs before, and you have to speak a specific language depending on who that person is. You better talk about, reduction in waste or unnecessary spending that you've eliminated, or
Right.
The fact that you've eliminated redundancy of vendors. You had multiple vendors that were kind of doing the same thing. So I think it depends a lot on who those people are. That finance or that budget focused, that bottom line focused individual, if you're not speaking about ROI or ROAS or reduction in wasteful spending, you're not likely to be met with an opportunity to extend
Right. Yeah.
that relationship or that engagement. And
Sure.
the second part of that too, the CMOs or the fractionals that want to get renewed, I'll offer that as an example of I had a past client where you probably couldn't have scripted a more ideal role in terms of the scope, the team, the industry. Like it was, I don't like to use the word perfect, but it was about as close as could be. And we made some really awesome things happen at that organization.
Mhm.
And they did offer an extension, but it was one of those deals where it was almost like a core values alignment, the way people were treated.
Right.
It was not an organization that, when you boil all those other things away, it's like, man, I'm not excited to show up here. Like, I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
like the way I'm being treated, or other people are being treated, or that type of thing. So I think both of those say a little bit of the same thing. We have to have core value alignment. You have to be in lockstep with that champion, that sponsor internally for the organization. The other thing you got to do, and I encourage people to do this, is keep a really good log, keep a record of what you're up to. So it might have been 3 months, it might have been 6 months, it might have been 12 months. The way things move today, I forgot what I had for breakfast.
Yep.
So we need to keep a really good record. Remember 3 months ago when we did this and that cool thing happened? And so especially if you've got a 12-month, if you've got a year-long engagement, best case scenario, you're making some really cool things happen along the way. And you might not want to, but at times you have to remind those individuals, like, look at all the things we've accomplished in the last 12 months.
Then we're almost out of ask one question, and it's this, right? And I've been asking this for the last few episodes, and I try not to be too blunt or to insult anyone when I ask, but like there are easier ways to make a living.
You're not wrong about that.
So why do this?
For me, that comes down to just like a hardwiring thing. I would say that my whole life I've appreciated the thought of having freedom and flexibility, or maybe it's license. Maybe it's not even freedom and flexibility, but it's license to do the work that I want with the people that I want to work with in the space or industry that I want to work. And for me, I get the ability to do that with as a fractional CMO, and that's more fun than things should be that aren't legal. So if you're wired in a certain way, for me, it's both as an entrepreneur to run my own business, but as an entrepreneur to be able to bring ideas and experience and add a whole bunch of value to other people in a space that I'm already passionate about. There's nothing better than that. I tell people often that if you can do something where your passion and your profession intersect, that's awesome. I don't buy into the idea that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I think that's bogus. We all do. We could be in a company that we started, an industry that we love, but you're going to have hard challenges. Economy is going to go bad. Leading people is probably the biggest challenge that anybody will ever face. There are going to be tough days. So I don't buy into the idea that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But if you can find that space where your passion and profession intersect, man, that's a magical space. That's so cool. And for me, that's why I love working with outdoor related companies, those in the hunting, fishing, shooting industry. I would spend time in that space, whether I was getting paid for it or not. So it's a really, really neat place to be.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Reid, man, this has been great. How should people get in touch with you? Or even more importantly, first, who should get in touch with you?
Yeah, who should get in touch with me? I would say if you are an executive or a founder who has helped an organization become successful, thanks to hard work and handshakes, and you want to be a little bit more intentional or deliberate with your marketing efforts, or if marketing is just a black box for you and you're already wearing too many hats, you don't know what the end game of this is, what's working, what's not with your marketing, and why, then that individual, we should probably grab a cup of coffee or hop on a call. And as far as tracking me down, oakandarrowcmo.com, or I'm on all the social media channels, just at Reid Vander Veen, just my name. So,
all right, man. This has been great. It's been great to meet you.
Likewise, this has been awesome. I appreciate
Right.
the conversation.
Thank you. And thanks for watching, whether you're watching the full episode or one of the many, many clips that already exist of this thing.